Hey guys, Chris Peach here, and welcome to the Money Peach podcast. Hey, do you remember growing up learning how to handle money? Yeah, neither do I. So that's why we're here today, to make your money fun again. We're going to talk about the principles in life that actually matter when it comes to managing your money in a way that works. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Money Peach podcast. Before we jump into another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast, I want to take a second to talk to you guys about my free live training event, Stop Living Paycheck to Paycheck and Just Live. Join me each week on this live webinar where I show you the 4-step system we use to go from living paycheck to paycheck to later paying off $52,000 in debt in only 7 months. And as a bonus for joining me on this live training, I'll be answering any questions you may have during the live Q&A session at the end. So head on over to moneypeach.com/webinar to get registered. If you were to ask me, Chris, who do you think of right away when you hear the word successful? I would tell you I think of my wife, Andrea. She is coming back on the show. She was first on the show on episode 24, where we talked about marriage, we talked about money, and basically how I got my wife on board with money. But inside that episode, you'll realize it didn't exactly work out that way. I didn't really get her on board with anything. I guess it was more of us coming to an agreement. But that was one of the most downloaded episodes we've ever done. So we came back, we said, you know what, we need to have you back on the show. So I started thinking about what can we bring her on the show? What can she share? And I thought, you know what? She has an unbelievable story. You see, she is the morning show news anchor on Phoenix's #1 morning show. And she's in front of millions of people in their living rooms, having a cup of coffee with them 5 days a week on their morning show. And we're in the 5th largest city in the country. So I say that out loud and I think, holy cow, this is impressive. How did she get to this point? And we started talking about it the other day, and we went back because, when you live with somebody, when you're married to somebody, you're doing life with somebody, sometimes things, every single day just become ordinary, and you don't realize they're not ordinary at all. They're extraordinary. I met Andrea back in college when she had this idea, this dream that she someday wanted to be on television. And now fast forward to right now, present day, and she's the morning show news anchor in the 5th largest city in the country, and she's kicking butt. But I wanted to bring her on the show for another reason, was not just to explain how she got there, but how does she balance life? I know many of you listening to this might be moms or dads, you have kids, you have soccer practice, you're trying to balance the checkbook, you have 100,000 different things going on in your head all at once. So I wanted to bring on Andrea. How do you go from getting up every single day at 2:30 in the morning, working a full day, coming home, getting the kids ready, soccer practice, gymnastics, being a wife? How do you balance all of this? And I think you're going to find it's very, very relatable. You see, she probably has the exact same struggles you do. So I wanted to bring her on the show today to talk about her story. It's unbelievable. It's motivating. So without further ado, let's bring on my smoking hot, smart, intelligent, awesome, amazing wife, Andrea. All right, Andrea, welcome back to the Money Peach podcast. You are on episode 24, and I looked at my analytics and I said, okay, one of the most listened to episodes was when we had you on the show. So you are back. You are back because of the demand of people wanting to hear more of you. So I'm going to jump right into it. I met you in college, and one of the first things I remember you had told me, we were talking, I think one of our first dates, I said, what do you want to do with your life? Where do you see yourself? And you had told me right away, with complete conviction, that you wanted to be on the news. And I remember looking at you going, that's pretty interesting, just on the news. And you said, yeah, I want you to start from that point.
Well, I didn't just want to be on the news, but I wanted to work somehow within the business. And so I was getting my degree, because I'm a little older than you are, was getting my degree in communications, which at the time, that program, you could do a lot with. And I kind of did that. Maybe I played the safe route with that too, because of the umbrella that it held. I could do quite a few different things within maybe, the media type business. So my senior year, I'm kind of fast forwarding. My senior year, I had to get an internship, and I could get an internship anywhere. It really could fit the prerequisites for the class. So I sought out one at a local television station, happens to be the one I'm still working at. And I went there like 3 days a week and worked as an intern on the morning show. And I would also work in the promotions department. And from that point, it sort of solidified, like, I like this. I like the fast pace feeling of this business and this career. I like the sort of uncertainty sometimes. I like the ability to be able to share good things that are happening in the world and the community. On top of all the bad things that get reported, there's also a lot of good that goes underreported. And I saw value in that, and it appealed to me in a lot of ways. So yeah, that's kind of how I pushed myself into that direction.
So I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit here. I remember when I was dating you, you were working at Wells Fargo, you were going to school full-time, and then you were doing this internship. So take me through a normal day of college for you, because I think people who are listening who maybe have, somebody that's getting ready to go to college, or maybe you're even in school, I just want you to share what it was like, balancing all of this. How did that work?
Well, that word balance still haunts me because I still don't quite know how to balance things, but I've only known working. Like, I've never known how to fill my time other than working or doing something. So in college, I put myself through college, yes, on some debt and some loans. So to bring more income or money to the table that I could spend just on normal day-to-day living, I did. I had a part-time job at the bank. And so by the time I was like a junior or senior in college, and I think I'd been working in the bank starting my sophomore year in college. Most of college I worked at the bank, so almost 4 years. But I had been going to school. I arranged my classes to go like all day, 2 days a week. So the other 3 days were free and open to work, and then eventually to work at the television station as an intern, which you don't get paid for at all. It's strictly the experience and the learning that you get from it. So I would go early in the morning because it's a morning show, 4:00 in the morning, and then I would stay there until, some days I would stay till noon, some days I'd stay till the end of the show. It kind of just depended. And then depending on my shift at the bank, I would go to the bank then after and work till the evening because it was an in-store branch and I could work till like 7. And then work Saturdays at the bank too because it was open at the time. So I just kind of filled the days like that, and I didn't really know any different.
Tell us about the moment. What was it like? Because a lot of people don't know this, but you were actually robbed at the bank. You were a bank teller and you were actually robbed. Talk about that.
Oh yeah, I was. I had started my shift there one morning, middle of the week, and we had just opened up, and we were an in-store branch, so inside of a grocery store. I had just opened up my station, and first customer walked up. It was a man, walked up, sunglasses on, didn't really suspect anything until he just stared at me and passed me a note. And I looked down, read what the note said, and it said, I want all the money in the drawer. Don't say anything, just give it to me, and that'll be that. So I did exactly that. We, of course, are trained on how to handle that. I did all the protocols, gave him the money, did what I was supposed to do as a teller, which are some little kind of inside things, and he went on his way. Police came very shortly after because of the protocols I followed, and thankfully, they caught him later that evening. And then it was obviously a process of several months of identifying him, working with police, and all of that. But yeah, it was scary.
So you're a full-time college student. You're putting yourself through college as much as you can, and then you're using grants and some student loans for their thing. You are an internship, right? And you're dealing with the stresses of like you said, you just went through a bank robbery. How did you manage all of this during college as between an 18 and a 22-year-old, kid, really?
I felt like, looking back now, of course, hindsight's always 20/20. Looking back, I'm like, I would take that responsibility, which really wasn't all that much compared to the responsibility I have now, any day, because life was way easier when I was only responsible for myself and managing a schedule like that. I manage a schedule like that still, but I'm responsible for 3 other people, including myself. So, 4 of us. I didn't really know any different. I just didn't. Was given responsibility at a pretty young age. My mom was sick at a young age, and I tended to take on that mother role for my brother and my family, and that responsible role. So it didn't even seem different to me. I just figured that's what I was supposed to do. That's just how I was.
So what did you learn most then from your mom? Now that you mentioned your mom, what did you learn the most from her?
Oh, she by far was the hardest working person ever. Her and my Nana, for sure. They set the bar pretty high. When you have two strong women like that and the impact that they had on my life, and still my Nana to this day, I only saw them working and working hard. But for some reason, like you talk about balance, like I don't know if they were going crazy at times, raising families and working and doing all that, but they never made it look like it was hard. They made it look effortless. My mom especially. I mean, my mom worked her butt off and ran my brother and I around. We were never felt neglected. She was always at events. She was the one picking us up from school. She was the one taking us to school. She always made our lunches, yet still worked a full-time job. Always. She never stayed home. And not that was never in the cards for our family. So that's all I ever saw. And I just thought that's how I'm supposed to be because that's what I was raised under.
We've talked about this before. I don't necessarily believe in the word balance when it comes to life. You know, we all get 168 hours every single week. I say this over and over again. So whether you're the Pope, whether you are, a famous movie star, whether you're the president of the United States, it doesn't matter. You're getting 168 hours a week. It's the one even playing field we all have. So I look at that saying, like you had said, balance is kind of a weird thing to say. What would you think about if we, instead of calling it balance, do you feel like it's more of just being efficient with your time and delegating?
I'm not a good delegator, though. You know that.
You like to do everything yourself.
It's just easier for me to do it myself, which in the long run, I'm sure is not easy because if I would learn to delegate a little bit more, I probably would be more efficient sometimes. But to me, I've just always, I know what I want. I know when I want it. I know how to get it. And sometimes if I just do it myself, then I feel like I know it will all get done. So I'm very rigid and I love a schedule and I love to keep it as close to that as possible, especially Monday through Friday. I'm fine being a little bit more lax on the weekend as far as the schedule goes because I feel like I've earned a little bit more of that lackadaisical sort of time after putting it in for 5 days straight, but I don't really know how to do it any differently.
Yeah, I agree. But you're learning. So I want to go back to talking about, okay, so you're in college, you graduate college. I remember you graduate in May. You're a year older than me. So you graduate in May. We're sitting there at our little local place.
Dos Gringos.
Well, at the time it was called Flip Flops.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, it was called Flip Flops. Mm-hmm. They're right there on University. So we're sitting there, we're having lunch. You had an interview with the news station and just kind of waiting to hear back, and your phone rings. So I want you to talk about that moment from when your phone rang up until, let's go about a year and a half to 2 years in, because it's very interesting.
So at that point, I had auditioned for the local traffic reporter position, and it literally was a position that was 3 hours a day, hourly wage. You come in, do your thing, and leave. And I remember thinking when the anchors on the morning show at the time had said, why don't you give it a shot? I, in my head, thought, well, first of all, I don't know north, south, east from west. How am I going to talk about traffic? I've lived here all my life, but I don't know where I'm going half the time. And secondly, I thought, well, you know what? If I don't try, then I don't want to look back 20 years, 10 years from now, 5 years from now and think, what would have happened if I would have just tried that? And I didn't want that feeling of regret. And I still think about that to this day. I'm so glad I just tried. What's the harm in trying? If I hate it, I quit, right? If I suck at it, they'll fire me. So there's a way out of almost anything. Like, you're not forced to do anything. You choose and you work towards what you want, but ultimately you're the one that chooses what you want to go after. So I did it. I auditioned. I was as green as can be. I was awful. Oh my gosh. I cannot believe they hired me. I really can't believe. I can still think about it and it makes me sweat. So they called and they're like, well, the position, we'd like to offer it to you if you want it, as we're sitting there. And I'm kind of looking at you as I'm listening to them offer this. And I don't even think I said to you, like, should I take it? I just said, okay, yeah, sure, I'll take it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm 21 years old. I've got nothing for me right now. So this right here, I was so deathly afraid. That was one of the things I was afraid of.
You were 23 years old.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I said yes right away without really even thinking about it. And then I thought, how am I going to live off this kind of money? I'm only working 3 hours a day. But I just couldn't say no. It was just one of those things I had to do.
Tell us about what was the pay like right out of college with that job? Where did you work at? And then how did you supplement your income?
I made $10 an hour.
$10 an hour. And this is in 2004, I believe.
And I worked at a off-site. Literally, it was like a closet. And I would come in the morning. I would turn on my camera. And obviously, they'd route the remote shot. And I would talk to a producer on the other end, all like through the phone line. And that's how I did my traffic reports. It literally was a painted small square. There was a broom and a vacuum to the left of me. It was a little desk. I worked with great people within this little building, but it was like little pods, one next to another with other television stations that had the same sort of thing. So I would come in every morning. At the time, I think we started the show at 5. So I'd get in the morning at about 4:30, 4:15. I'd work till 9. And then at 9, I would leave. And I had a full-time job on top of that because that income didn't supplement or didn't even help me live.
What were you doing for your full-time job?
I worked full-time for a local hospice and I did community relations. So I was out talking with doctors and hospitals on the value and benefit of hospice and teaching them on how to approach, their patients and families when the time perhaps came that they would need it.
So you're starting your morning off. You get to work at, say, 4:30, 4:45 to get ready for the 5 o'clock go. And then you leave there and you're going to your 40-hour-a-week job, 40-hour plus in sales, or...
Yeah, I would leave the place where we did traffic out of. I would leave there at 8-ish, 8:15, just enough time to start my day with my other job. And then I would work there until, 5-ish. Some days later, if I had appointments or dinners or things like that. And so some nights, 8 or 9 o'clock at night if I had something like that.
So during this time, this was the same time that I was hired with the fire department and I was going through the academy. We were living together. I was going through the academy. I remember getting up for work at 4:30. You were already gone. I would come home at about 7 p.m. and then you would be in bed because you were getting up so early. And that was our life for a while.
We were we never saw. We were two ships.
I remember you would put a dinner for me in the microwave. It was a plate with food on it and a paper towel over it.
Yep.
And I just hit the button and that was my dinner every night for... It was, looking back, I can't even believe that we were able to do that. We did that for so long.
Yeah. I didn't even know any different, though.
So let's talk about now. So you're in this closet, you're 25, 30 miles away from the actual news station. How did you get a job in the news station? You were a subcontractor for them. Let's transition. How did you go from being in that closet doing the 3 hours a day to full-time? Where did that happen?
Well, I obviously kept showing up every morning, and as I kept doing it, I got more comfortable on the air. I was by no means great, but I definitely, thankfully, every time I would go on, I would feel a little bit more comfortable. I wasn't like ready to throw up into a trash can like I did in the very beginning after every traffic report. But I just kept doing what I was told to do and asked to do. And when occasions or opportunities came up that they needed me maybe to do something outside of my typical 3 hours, I would always say yes because I wanted the experience and the opportunity to get better. And the only way I was going to get better is to keep doing it and to keep having more opportunities to try something new or try something that was a little bit different or scary or something I wasn't used to. Because as soon as I did it, then I always remember after I did it, I would get in my car, if it was like a live shot or a report or whatever it might be, an interview, and I'd say, Andrea, that wasn't all that bad. Like, I did it. It was okay. So I just kept doing that. And I did that schedule with a full-time job for 2 years. And then at the end of 2 years, they offered me a full-time feature reporter position. And that position included still doing traffic in the morning. And then after the 3 hours of doing traffic, the last hour of the show is out covering some feature story or a couple different feature stories. And they would be different, obviously, every day.
What was the pay like once you became full-time with the news station?
Well, it was obviously better than when I was just working 3 hours a day, doing traffic. But I was also used to making a lot more money because I worked full-time in a position that was somewhat goal-based and not sales per se, but there was a bonus structure and things like that. So technically, I was making a decent amount of money. I was working my tail off and working a lot of hours. So I took a big pay cut to work full-time and only have one job by going full-time with the station.
But a better quality of life.
Way better. And that's what I weighed out, quality of life or money. And at that point in time, I again said, well, what if I don't say yes to this opportunity? I'll always look back and say, wonder what would have happened. And I didn't want to feel like that. So I, again, did it, said yes. And I kept doing that like every few years because after a couple of years, 3 years, I would re-sign a contract. And at that point in time, it was for a little bit bigger of a role or, the pay might have been different or whatever. But usually the role changed. And they have been fabulous. I mean, they have given me opportunities and I'm so incredibly thankful. But I'm thankful and grateful that I kept taking that leap of faith and just saying yes. And sometimes when I was unsure, but I'd say yes, I just figured I'll figure it out. I always thought, say yes and then figure it out.
Yeah, fake it till you make it is how you
That's always my go-to in almost everything I do lately.
Okay, so now I want to ask you, it hasn't always been what I call unicorns and rainbows in the news business. There's been 2 times that I can think of where, I'm your husband, I'm going to say this all day long, that you were definitely ready to move from feature reporter to anchor. And 2 times back to back, you were passed on. So how did you overcome that?
Well, I mean, like anything in life, it's full of ups and downs. There's excitement and disappointment. And my path and my journey at that time, I wasn't ready for that. Looking back now, I'm so glad it happened when it did. In that moment when I was hoping for that position or hoping to move forward and I didn't get it, I was let down. I was disappointed. But like with anything, hindsight's always 20/20. And I grew so much more in the space in between waiting for, the next opportunity. I felt like my life experiences enriched me. It made me more well-rounded. It made me more relatable. And I just felt more confident with just who I was. And I had a little bit more experience to just sit up there and be able to relate with people. I mean, ultimately, people are letting us in their homes every single morning. They're letting us in on precious time that they have with their family as they're getting ready to start their day. And so they want to welcome you, but they want to welcome someone that's warm and caring and that they feel comfortable with. And I'm so thankful that I was finally at the time when it was supposed to happen. I was ready for that responsibility.
I'll never forget, we had Carter, our firstborn. It's 2010. He's born in July 2010. This is before, by the way, this is before our debt-free journey. So we were absolutely horrible with money at this point. It wasn't until about 6 or 7 months later that we got it together. But anyway, I remember I needed to give you a break. You were just a little overwhelmed with just new baby and just a lot of going on. Obviously, any new mom probably faces that. So I said, you know what, I'm going to take I think at the time, our 2-month-old. I'm going to take him to the coffee shop, just me and him, and give you, an hour, 2 hours to yourself. So I take him to the coffee shop. Me and him are there. My phone rings, and it's you on the other end. And I could tell something is up. Like, you are super excited, and you're kind of giggly. And I think it was something like, guess who is Arizona's new morning show anchor? Tell me about that moment. I want to say it was probably September of 2010.
Yeah. I came back to work in September of 2010. So it would have been like August, end of July, because Carter was just probably a couple months old. So August. And yeah, I was offered to come back after maternity leave in a new role. And it would be still doing traffic in the early hours of the show and then co-hosting. I was thrilled. Not only did I need that so desperately for just my own well-being, I just was in that moment of life where I'm so unsure of everything. Am I doing what I'm supposed to as a mom? I don't even know how to raise a baby. And some days I'm totally failing. And so it came at the perfect time. I went back to work end of September of 2010 in that role. And I've been there ever since.
So 7 years almost, 6.5, 7 years.
In that role.
In that role. You've been there since 2004. Well, been on television since 2004. Yeah. Been in that role. So now that you're in, I call it, the driver's seat, where, you've come from this. I remember I met you in college and you told me that someday you wanted to be in the news business. You go work in a closet for a couple of years, maintain a full-time job on the side of that, do that for a couple of years. You get passed up a few times, but you say was a good thing for you. At the time, it was rough, but you look back, it was a good thing. You fast forward, you now have a kid. We have 2 kids now. You're the anchor now here in Phoenix. So a lot has happened. I mean, you have come a long way. I mean, this could be easily a book worth reading. I mean, it's just the story just keeps going and going. So I want to ask you, who are some of the best people, the best interviews you've done? Because, being the 5th largest city in the country, you get a lot of, I would say, A-list people that come through the studio. Who's one person that you love to interview?
That's like picking your favorite kid. I don't know. We've interviewed so many people. I think probably sometimes celebrities, are what you would expect, celebrities. But oftentimes some of the most famous people are the most humble and wonderful, kind people. Most every country music star that you would think would be a fun person to be around, you would be like totally in awe of them because they're exactly what you think. We interview a lot of sports stars, and probably one of the coolest, most sweetest, most humble, and most famous, Larry Fitzgerald. He's been on several times, and every time he comes on, he is one of those people that you feel like truly appreciates being there, appreciates your time, yet we're the one that appreciates him so much. I mean, he's come into the studio, and I became that mom where I let Carter come in and visit with him and meet him, and he is just as good as gold.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know who Larry Fitzgerald is, he is going to be a future Hall of Famer, definitely a future Hall of Famer. He is a wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, which is our home team. He's been here since day one, and if you live here in the Valley, he is just a complete role model, huge hero, and I think that stretches out beyond Arizona because the way he carries himself. I mean, he's just a class act, so I'm glad that you said Larry, and I'm glad that Carter got to meet him because that was just a huge deal for him. So, all right, I want to ask you this. Who is your biggest role model or the biggest person of influence in your life?
Oh, I have a lot of role models in my life. Professionally, it's the people I work with day to day. It's my fellow coworkers, the people I sit beside every single day. They teach me something every day. They're humble, they're kind, they are smart as heck, and they keep me on my toes, and they make me want to be better because I don't want to be sitting alongside of them, being complacent or lax. So it's all of them. They're the ones that just make me want to be better. It's my family, my mom, who obviously is no longer with me, but I still strive to be good every day and try to be better than I was yesterday and try to make her proud and think, okay, especially on my bad days, I'm like, she did this, made it look effortless. Get yourself together, Andrea, and do it. Stop complaining. You don't have it bad. You can handle this, And my Nana, of course, she's the matriarch of the family. And talk about somebody that, raised a big family, went back to school when her kids were older, started a business from the ground up, and it became one of the most successful businesses in Arizona. And a woman. I mean, she's a intelligent woman. And I think having strong women influences in my life have made me always strive to just keep that going. Because when I feel lazy and tired, I always look at you thinking, well, he's been working a full-time shift at the fire department, and then he comes home and he works this side business, and you never seem like you have no energy. So usually when I start feeling bad for myself, I usually snap myself out of it pretty quickly when I look at you.
What is the quote that you live by? Is there a quote that you have in your head that you live by on a daily basis?
It's one that Eleanor Roosevelt said, obviously, many, many years ago. But it says, do one thing every day that scares you. And I might have flip-flopped the words a little bit, but that's the gist of it. And I literally wake up every single morning and I tell myself that, among everything else that I do in the morning. But I do remind myself, and it could be something so simple. It doesn't have to be something big. There are little things in life that scare us every day. Something new, but I try something every day or do something every day that's a little scary, a little uneasy, because afterwards I always remind myself, it wasn't that bad. Look, I did it. And then you know, that feeling of accomplishment, that feeling of pride, that the only way you can get that is by you yourself doing it. I mean, people can tell you all the time, like, oh, you were great at that, or you did that wonderfully, or you rocked at that. But if you don't feel that inside of yourself, then it really doesn't mean as much.
What's the biggest fear that you think you face right now?
Just making sure I just don't mess up. I mean, I feel like I have so much responsibility, and my biggest fear is that I am failing. I mean, I do fear failure. I fear that, you know, am I doing enough for my kids? Am I doing enough for my family? Am I doing enough for my career? And I never feel like I'm doing enough. So I'm a little fearful of that sometimes.
And I can tell you on the other end, watching you is you do so much. You do an unbelievable amount. I sometimes blink and I'm thinking, how does she get all that done so quickly, or how do you get it done? So real quick, I just want you to take us through, what does a Monday look like in the life of Andrea? Starting off, what does it look like?
The alarm on a Monday goes off at 2:30 a.m.
Is that 5 days a week or just Monday?
5 days a week.
Okay.
I add 10 minutes to it, like 2:40 on non-hair washing days. And you know me about hair washing. I only wash my hair twice a week. So I do get a little extra 10 minutes in there sometimes. I get up. I get ready, for the most part, here at home. There's no hair and makeup people at work, so I am the hair and makeup person. Coffee, the night before is when I do everything. So the kids are tended to, clothes are laid out, lunch is packed. My lunch is done the night before. Close everything, because I need every extra minute the day of, that morning of. I leave the house by 3:15 or 3:20. Coffee in hand, obviously. Can't start the day without it. I get to work.
On the way to work, what do you listen to?
Usually the Fox News channel.
Okay.
Or any live broadcast of a morning show or news, just because it's my way of getting caught up on the night before, what I missed. Because I usually don't, since it's so early, I don't watch TV in the morning while I'm getting ready. I just need to get up and get out the door. So I listen to it driving in, which gives me 30 minutes to listen to whatever I missed. I get to work. I get everything started. We start at 4:30 on the air. So that gives me a half hour to finish getting ready, to get like the first traffic report produced and ready to go. And then that's when, in between, from 4:30 to 7, I'm obviously reading through the rundowns of the show, final preps on segments, and obviously reading print stuff on the internet, articles and things like that, background information, just so I have a good general gist of where I'm going, what I'm talking about for that show. And then after that, show ends at 10, small little break.
So when are you on the air?
From 4:30 to 10 a.m.
And when are you anchoring?
7 to 10.
Okay. And then at 10 a.m. is your day over?
No. Then we have a little break. Then we have a 10:30 planning meeting. This is on a normal day. Some days, though, I go out at 10:30, 10:15, and I go shoot a story for another day. So then I go out with a photographer, we go to the location, we do the story, shoot it. And then usually by then it's close to noon. So 12 to 12:30, the day wraps up at the station. But that's just that hat gets hung up. Then
what about
I
your
start my
lunch
other
break?
day.
When is your lunch break?
Oh, I usually try to eat something from between about 10:15 and 10:30
So you don't have a lunch hour, you have a lunch 15 minutes.
at my desk over my computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So 12:30, what do we do from there?
I leave the station. I usually try to get to the gym so I can knock that out before I get home. Do that, get home, and it's either pick up one kid if she's at, family's house, sitter, whatever. And then I have like an hour and a half till I get the other kid, Carter, off the bus. And then it's a quick prep of everything for the next day. I have like from about 3:45 till 4:30. I try to do all of that then, lunches, all of that. Then we start homework, and then we start going wherever we're going that night. We get dinner ready. We eat early if we have to go somewhere.
So Monday night.
Well, Monday night we have a Bible study, local neighborhood group. So that doesn't start till 6. So that actually gives me a little bit of extra time. We usually eat. I can get dinner done, homework done and everything by about 5:45. Then we leave. We go to the neighborhood group. We spend some time with them. We're home by 7:30. We get the kids ready for bed. On a night you're home, it's way easier because I have you. When I'm by myself, it's like it's on. We got to get this done. And then we try to get to bed by 8 or 8:30. The kids by 8:15. They go to bed by 8:15.
Do you get any help from your husband?
Yeah. No, I do. You help me. But oftentimes you are taking care of the kids in the morning if I'm at work up to when I get home. So when I get home, I feel like it's my job to take over so you can get some work done. Mm-hmm. It's just how it works.
Is that Monday or is that Monday through Friday pretty much?
Monday through Friday.
We have Bible study Monday nights, Tuesday nights wrestling practice, Wednesday nights gymnastics, Thursday nights soccer practice.
Friday nights free right now.
Free. We're going to keep it free.
Saturday, soccer.
Soccer games in the morning.
And Sunday, we're really trying to be better about just having a lax Sunday.
I love it. A couple rapid fire questions now I have here. What's the best book you've ever read?
Ooh, The Best Yes.
The Best Yes. Do you know who it's by?
Lisa Turkis.
Okay, we're going to put links to the show notes in there. What is the best moment you've had on television?
When you proposed to me.
All right, we're going to have links to that. Also, there's a YouTube video. So I proposed to her live on the air, caught her off guard.
Almost 10 years ago?
And that was really cool. That actually went crazy.
It went as planned.
It went as planned. I was hoping you were going to say yes, but I'm saying that got picked up by, it was like on the Entertainment Tonight show.
I know, Inside Edition. It was weird, but it was fun.
Pretty wild.
And that was kind of before people started doing that.
Yeah.
Can you believe he thought of doing that? It still blows my mind.
So creative. Last question I want to hit you with is, do you think that you've made it?
Oh, gosh, no.
No?
No.
What do you have left to do then?
So much. I think the minute you think you've made it, that's the minute you become complacent. Because there's always something to get better at, to be better at, to try harder at. And if I'm content with where I'm at, and I'm happy with where I've gotten, but I've definitely not made it. There's so much more that I want to do as a mom, as a wife, in the community, in my career. And so no. But I think a lot of it has to do with my personality. I can never just I'm happy and content for a moment, and then I'm always looking at, okay, let me find another goal to reach. Let me set another something to do. It's just how I work.
What are some choices that you've made today, or what are the choices you've made in the past that have made you who you are today?
Well, I think taking big leaps of faith and not knowing then, but now looking back, I'm so happy I did that, because the path and the journey that I've been on thus far has all been because I've said, okay, let's try it. Let's do it. Each one has opened up a new door that was a little scary, but I walk through it, we try it, another door opens. I walk through it, I try it. I know not all those doors are going to be great, and nor have they all been great. But I think that by just trusting that there's something better planned out there for you and letting go a little bit of that control of, I want it all mapped out this way. Looking back, I think that's been a good thing for me.
All right, last question I want to hit you with. What is the best piece of advice that you could give yourself at 22, 23 years old? Looking back, knowing what you know now, what's the best piece of advice you could give yourself? Starting at that moment where we got the phone call that you are going to be working as the traffic girl, we were at flip-flops. Starting at that moment, what's the best piece of advice you can give yourself?
To say yes to those open doors and not worry so much. I wish I could give myself that advice even now. I still tend to fall into that place of worry at times, but I remember back then being worried that, well, what if it doesn't work out? Well, what if it doesn't end up being the dream job, or it doesn't end up what I thought it was going to be? And I wish I would have told myself, don't worry so much about it. It's going to end up just how it's supposed to end up. And I think I spent a lot of time worried and not enjoying that process. And I still work on that every day, because I have a lot of days where I worry about the end result. And when it's all said and done, it's not up to me.
Is there any way down the road that we could probably get you back on the show?
I think so.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Thank you so much for being here today. That was awesome. We hit you with a ton of stuff. And for those of you listening, I wrote down all of these questions and I would not show it to her, because when I interview anybody, I don't show them the questions. I want them to be caught off guard. I want it to be natural. So if you hear a lot of ums and pauses, those are natural ums and pauses, because I completely threw her off. But I think we're definitely going to have her on the show. There's more I want to ask her in regards to her spending habits, in regards to her feelings about money. And sometimes there's even things I probably would ask her in her feelings about me, sometimes in my crazy ideas. So we'll see you guys next week with another incredible episode of the Money Peach podcast. And as always, you can grab the show notes for this episode at moneypeach.com/session32. That's moneypeach.com/session32. Take care. Are you tired of living paycheck to paycheck? Are you lying in bed awake at night wondering how you're going to pay the next bill? How you're going to save for kids' college? How you're going to pay off that debt? And when are you going to take that dream vacation that you guys have been talking about forever? Well, stop worrying about it and head on over to awesomemoneycourse.com and see why students all over the world are now taking back control of their money. They're now in the driver's seat of their financial future. awesomemoneycourse.com. Alrighty, guys, we'll see you in next week's episode. Take care. Boom,